Good afternoon. This is my third, maybe fourth attempt at making this video. The baby is home with me today, so she is a definite interrupter because, you know, she needs milk, she needs strawberries, she needs all these things, but, you know, whatever. Okay, and I say to her, I say, "Are y'all good now? Is there anything else you need?" She says, "No," and then a few seconds later, she's like, "But I need this, and I need that." So, she's definitely needy. So, she's trying to get into the video right now, but that's not why we're here. We're here today because I wanted to talk about infused oils. So, for the fourth time, let's talk about some infused oils. Infused oils are something that has been done for a very long time. It's a very ancient technique. And it has been done to preserve things, to use up excess for preservation, and basically it has a variety of purposes. It can be used for culinary purposes, it can be used for cosmetic purposes, and what products you use will be determined by what your purpose is. So, for example, if you are choosing to make an infused oil of garlic for, say, cooking, then you look to using something like an avocado oil in order to make your infused oil. You do have to be careful with things like olive oil. Olive oil is good for infusing things. Olive oil does not have it breaks down easily with heat. So when you are making infused oils with olive oil, you have to be careful about the temperature at which you use. Generally speaking, you're going to look at having, for this quick method that I'm going to show you, you would be looking at having something to be right around 100 degrees in order to infuse the oil. Traditionally speaking, well, it was solar powered. And I do want to share with you a traditional method that I'm doing with some dandelions. The reason why I decided to use the traditional method for infusing the dandelions into the oil was because I guess I was just being nostalgic. They were dried in a very traditional method. They were solar dried. So I was very excited about just continuing that traditional process. So I'll show you that here in just a second. You also have to be careful about the herbs that you use. Dried herbs are best for an infused oil, and the reason being is that the water content is lower, and if you have no water, then you're not going to get things like mold, and your oil is not going to go rancid. So you want to watch for signs of mold if you're using a fresh herb, or signs that the oil has become rancid. Usually it's a smell, or you see something on the oil, in order to know really whether it's fresh or whether you're going to want to keep it. It's also important to use glass. Glass is important because you don't have as much of a risk of contamination when you do from things like plastic. So it's really more of a safe kind of material in order to use glass jars. Okay, so I'm going to show you the dandelion infused oil that I have cooking. It has been sitting way too long, but there's not really any risk of it sitting too long. The only thing is that if you don't let it cook long enough, then you're not going to get the full effect of the herb. So that's the reason why I wasn't too super worried about it being in there for very long. So I'm going to show you this here. Let me turn the camera around. Okay, so here is my dandelion infused oil. As you can see, this is an old spaghetti jar that I've cleaned. And generally speaking, when you're using this method, you want to put your dried herb in there, and then you put enough oil in just to cover it. And I did use avocado oil with this. because even though it's going to be used for a cosmetic use, I wanted an oil that remained liquid because I'm going to use it for a body lotion bar. So it was important for me to use something that was going to bring out the best in the dandelion. So once it gets to this point, and I did sit it in a place where it was able to get warm. A lot of people want to they want to cover it and protect it from the sun. The process that is used for a naturally made or a solar made infused oil is really basically the same from that point on. And this has been sitting for a couple of months, and you don't necessarily have to let them sit that long in order for them to be a solar powered oil. But protecting it from the sunlight, you can just put a paper bag over it. It still gets warm that way, and it's protected from sunlight if you feel that your oil is going to be damaged by being exposed to direct sunlight. So there's that. Okay, on to the oil that I'm going to make today. I'm going to use the quick method. It takes about 5 hours for an infused oil to be done this way, depending upon how much you want your oil to infuse. I'm going to be using coconut oil. It's an extra virgin organic coconut oil because my purpose today is purely cosmetic. This is something that I learned to do a long time ago because I enjoy having the coconut oil and the rose smell in the bathtub. So that's going to be the purpose of this oil. A couple of things that you're going to need. You're going to need a double boiler. You're going to need your oil. And then, of course, you're going to need your herb. So let me show you what I've got going on here. So here's my double boiler. And as you can see, it's got a flat bottom. This one I purchased a really long time ago. And it has the top part that also has holes where it can be used to steam vegetables. And then this is the bottom. This is where the water will be. And then, of course, my lid. So there's that. I have a large spoon that I'm going to use for dipping my coconut oil. I also have a 1 pound bag of rose petals that I purchased. This particular bag I got from Frontier. When you open this up, the smell is amazing. And then I also have my coconut oil. Now, yes, this is a Walmart brand of coconut oil. I've also used Nutiva as another good coconut oil. But the things that you want to look for on your coconut oil are that the things that are important to look for are that it is unrefined, it is virgin, it is expeller pressed, and it is organic. So there's the coconut oil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I don't spill my roses. First of all, is I'm going to go ahead and get some water and put it in the bottom of my double boiler. Okay, so I went ahead and got water in my double boiler. You don't have to fill it up, but you are going to have to watch it and keep track. So I'm going to go ahead and put my top on. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my coconut oil and put my coconut oil in there. Hence the big spoon. Okay. And it's just going to go straight away in here. I have an electric stove because of where I live. We don't have access to natural gas. Yes, I know we could use propane, but I don't have that set up. So get that coconut oil in there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on high briefly because I want to get my water hot and start to boiling because I want to get my coconut oil melted. Now the thing to know about coconut oil is that it can take a lot of heat but it also melts around 77 degrees. So, you know, that's why it's in this state. You're going to use whatever amount of coconut oil that you want to infuse, and then how much herbs you use will be based on how much coconut oil that you've used. Okay, so I've got all of my coconut oil that I'm going to use, and you can see that I've used quite a bit of coconut oil, and the reason for that is because, you know, of course, we're in the business of selling things, so this coconut oil infused with roses will be for sale. It'll be $10 for the 4-ounce bottle, and so we're just going to put that on our Facebook page, and you'll be able to give us a message if you would be interested in purchasing some. Make sure that the top of your double boiler is clean and dry before you start to make your infused oil, because you do not want water in the mix, and of course you don't want impurities either, but you don't want water in the mix because you don't want it to go bad or to mold. So once that's melted, then we will go ahead and add our roses. So we're getting really close to it being all melted here. Just going to give it a little bit of a stir, because it'll help with the consistency of the heat, being all the way through, even throughout the oil. I have turned it down to 2 because I did not want my oil or my water getting to a full rolling boil, because of course it's going to make it bubble out the sides, and that's just going to make a mess, and we don't really want it to be that hot. We do not want the temperature getting that high. Okay, so we are currently at the point where all of the oil has melted and is now liquid, and we want to start adding the roses. I did turn as you can see the steam on the camera, I did turn the heat setting down to the very lowest setting possible, because I want to make sure that it doesn't get too hot. So now we're going to add the roses, and we're just going to add them a handful at a time. Kalana's going to help me add some roses.
So we're gonna add some roses to see how much it's gonna be.
Thank you for that commentary. A word about roses also, or where you can purchase your herbs. I generally will purchase from a place called Frontier, and I also purchase from Mountain Rose Herbs. And so we're gonna, yes, we're gonna give them a little stir. And you want to, okay, thank you. Let me talk, would you? So you want to make sure that your roses are completely covered. You don't want them to be so thick that there's no there's no room for them to be able to get into the media. So would you please stop and let me use the spoon? Thank you. So you can tell that, I've got quite a bit of roses in here at this point, and I'm just going to go ahead and let that hang out now. We did not use a whole lot of roses. Go ahead and maybe add a couple more handfuls here.
I got big hands.
Got a big handful? There you go. All right. Yes, that is definitely all that we need, because we want them all to be wet. We want them all to be touching the oil. And we're going to come back every now and again, and we're going to give it a little bit of a stir, so that we can make sure that all of the roses are evenly heated, and yeah, that's definitely good right there. and are getting treated by the oil. So we're going to put the lid on it. And then, all right, we'll let that sit and we'll see in just a little bit. So I went ahead and disassembled the double boiler, and this is the results. I went ahead and did things a little bit longer than 5 hours, and I always muse to myself that this looks like it is fried rose petals. So it was roughly about 7 hours that I went ahead and let it cook. I cut myself a small piece of cheesecloth and placed it over a jar. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the bulk of it off. And I have at times used a rubber band to hold my cheesecloth in place. So this is just going to separate the liquid that is just sitting there. And if you notice, there's still a lot of oil that is in the rose petals that are still in the pan. We'll deal with those in just a second. I did let this sit off to the side to cool a little bit because it can be hot when we go to this next step.
Mother, how did
I cut myself a piece of cheesecloth, another one, and then I also donned a pair of these gloves. These are just nitrile gloves that you can buy at the store. And not because I don't want to get the oil on my hands, but because sometimes it can be a little bit hot when you're going through and squeezing the rest of the oil out of the rose petals that are left. Myself, I don't want to waste any of the oil at all. There's inevitably some waste, but you don't want to waste any. And also, I used a clear jar for this first time through because I wanted you to be able to see what it looked like. Now, you know, when we first put the coconut oil in there, it was perfectly clear. And now it's got this beautiful color from our rose petals. There are some, it's not very clear. It's cloudy. You can see pieces of the roses that are left in the liquid there, and you can see it when you turn it to the side there, how it's a little bit cloudy, and that's part of the reason why is because you've got bits of your flowers still in the coconut oil and they're kind of suspended. They will eventually fall to the bottom. I don't know if you can tell, they're already starting to fall down to the bottom here. And they'll make like a coating on the bottom of the jar. And that's perfectly okay. If you want to filter it again, you can certainly do so. I don't find that it's absolutely necessary. Just that everything eventually settles to the bottom while it's cooling. So I'm going to go ahead and put my rose petals inside of my cheesecloth, and then I'm going to squeeze. This is the most labor intensive part of the making of an infused oil. Okay, so here we go. And it always cracks me up because it's so crunchy. You'll see just what kind of quantity of oil we have that is still sitting inside of your herb. don't know if you can see it dripping off my hands. Like I said, this is the... So now I've finished squeezing all that was in the pan, and I'm going to go ahead and take my hairband off and squeeze what I filtered through. And as you can see, there's still quite a bit. Okay, what's left? If you take a look at what has already been squeezed, you can tell that it's much drier than it was before. And of course, there's still a lot of oil left in there. And it's, unless you have a tool that you use to squeeze it, you're really not going to be able to squeeze all of the oil out of it. And of course, there's always a little bit of oil that's still left in the pan. You do the best you can to get it out. And unfortunately, there's just no way to get everything as much as you'd like to. And as much as... And here at last, I set up a new piece of cheesecloth with the rest of my rose pieces in it. It's sitting on a metal strainer here and in a bowl. And I have the handle sitting on this green jar so that it can be tipped up. Any last little bit of oil that wants to drain out can drain out that way. I went ahead and put a lid on my jar of my oil, combined it all together. And you can see that there's more sediment that's developing down at the bottom of the jar. Because this is coconut oil, this will eventually turn back into a solid as it cools. Remember that at about 77 degrees, it does turn to a liquid. So what I'll do with this is I can sit this whole jar in a container of hot water, and that will melt it again so that I can package it for sale. So if you have other containers that you wanted to put it in, then you just put it in some hot water and it will soften back up. So thank you for watching our video, and I hope you have a good day.